Okay, let's dive right in. Few things get the kind of buzz, the kind of drama that a really anticipated matchup does, especially when it's these two teams with all the attention and things come right down to the wire.
Absolutely. The energy around the Indiana Fever and the New York Liberty this season, it's just undeniable, isn't it? Especially with players like Caitlin Clark in the spotlight. Every game feels like a major event.
Exactly. And that's what we're digging into in this deep dive. We've got a bunch of source material here, news articles, game recaps, even some transcripts from video stuff, all focused on the May 24th, 2025 WNBA game between the Fever and the Liberty. Now, got to say up front, the sources, they give us a bit of a complex picture.
Yeah, different perspectives maybe on recent games or even, interestingly, on the outcome of this specific one.
Right. So that's our mission today. We're going to pull out the key details, the insights, and acknowledge where these sources maybe differ a bit, all to help you understand what went down in this series or this game and what it tells us about these teams early in the season.
It was Saturday, May 24th, 2025. A 1 p.m. Eastern tip-off. One source mentioned Barclays Center, but pretty much all the others point to Gainbridge Fieldhouse in Indianapolis.
Indianapolis it is then. Home game for the Fever.
And coming into that game, the Liberty, they were hot. 2-0, one of only 3 undefeated teams at that point. The articles really played up their offense, especially after they just set a league record, right? 19 three-pointers against Chicago.
19, that's, wow. Serious firepower.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the Fever, they were sitting at 2-1. Their last game, the win against Atlanta, was interesting because Clark actually had a rare off night shooting threes. Missed all 5, I think.
Yeah, the sources pointed that out. Said it broke a pretty long streak for her.
And you saw that anticipation reflected in the betting lines. Sources mentioned the Liberty were favored.
Oh, saw that. Favored by 4 points on FanDuel?
Yeah, or maybe 2.5 on BetMGM. The over-under was around 170.5, 173.5, somewhere in there.
Okay. And they even had specific player props mentioned for Clark. Over under 21.5 points and 4 made threes.
Mm-hmm. Which is interesting, right? Expecting a big individual game, even if the team was the underdog.
Yeah, it kind of suggests they expected her to score regardless of the final result. So key players the sources highlighted. For the Liberty, obviously, they're big 3. Mm-hmm. Breanna Stewart, Jonquel Jones, Sabrina Ionescu.
The usual suspects. But Natasha Cloud got a specific shout out too. One source said she was averaging nearly 20 points a game through those first 2.
Wow, yeah. Another weapon.
Exactly. And for the Fever, the focus was clearly on Clark and Aliyah Boston. But players like Alyssa Smith, Kelsey Mitchell, they were mentioned as being really crucial too.
And there's that quote from Coach Sandy Brondello, right? Yeah. About the Fever being a much better team this year.
Yes, that stood out. She credited improved chemistry and defense specifically. Yeah. That's a really interesting insight into how they saw themselves evolving.
That chemistry point feels important.
Yeah.
And for anyone wanting to watch, the sources said it was on CBS nationally.
Yeah, CBS and streamed on Paramount Plus Day. Plus, the usual suspects like Hulu, plus Live TV, Fubo, DirecTV Stream. Apparently, free trials were available for some of those too.
So definitely set up for a big audience.
Okay, so let's get into the game itself. We'll start with the sources that described that really close one, the 90-88 Liberty win. These accounts painted a picture of a real battle from the jump. Liberty won the tip. Early scoring back and forth. Jones for Liberty, Boston for the Fever. They got going early.
And Clark scored early too, right? Including that 3-point play that gave the Fever their first lead.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. The first quarter was described as really tight back and forth. Liberty ended up with just a 1-point lead, 30-29.
Okay, 30-29 after 1. And Boston was leading the Fever with 10 points then?
Yep, Boston with 10. Hull and Clark each had 7 in that first quarter, according to those reports.
Right, spreading it around a bit.
Then the second quarter, these sources say the Liberty started to pull away a little. Interestingly, one report mentioned really high shooting percentages for both teams early in the quarter, like Liberty at 68%, Fever at 59%. So efficient offense.
Both teams scoring well.
Yeah. And by about the 2.50 mark of the second, 4 Liberty players were already in double figures. So they were getting contributions across the board.
Okay, so Liberty built a lead by halftime.
They did. Halftime score reported as Liberty 55, Fever 46, a 9-point lead.
And Clark shooting from 3. Still cold in that first half.
Yeah, the reports noted she was 0 for 5 from deep in the first half, continuing that struggle from the Atlanta game.
Oof.
Also, a quick injury not mentioned. Leonie Fibich for the Liberty was questionable to return.
Okay, but then the third quarter. Sounds like things flipped dramatically based on these accounts.
Oh, completely. Massive turnaround. The Fever just exploded in the third. They outscored the Liberty 30-13 in that quarter alone.
30-13. How did that happen?
Well, Lexi Hall apparently hit a three, started off. Boston and Mitchell chipped in. And then Caitlin Clark had some huge moments, according to these reports.
Okay, like what?
Well, after that rough first half, she finally hit a field goal. Then, crucially, she hit her first three-pointer of the game. One source made a point of saying that snapped a streak of 12 straight misses from deep, going back to the previous game.
Wow, must have been a relief.
You'd think so. And then she wasn't done. Completed a 4-point play. And then, to top it all off, hit a buzzer-beating three at the end of the third quarter.
A buzzer beater. So the Fever took the lead.
Yeah, big time. They went into the fourth quarter leading 76-68. Huge momentum shift.
Incredible sequence. Did that carry into the fourth?
It did, briefly. Natasha Howard scored the first 4 points of the fourth, pushing the Fever lead to 12, 80-68.
Okay, so they were in control.
Looked like it. But the Liberty have firepower. These reports detailed an 11-2 run by New York. Jonquel Jones hit some really big threes during that stretch to close the gap right back up.
So it got tight again down the stretch.
Extremely tight. The final minute, according to these accounts, was intense. The game was tied multiple times.
Okay.
Aliyah Boston hit free throws to tie it up at 88 all. That was right after Jonquel Jones had hit her free throws to give the Liberty an 88-86 lead.
Wow, back and forth at the line. What happened in the final seconds?
So tied at 88, Fever had the ball. Clark missed a three-pointer. Then there was a scramble. DeWunna Bonner got a shot up, but it was blocked, reportedly. Kelsey Mitchell missed, too.
Okay, so Liberty got the ball back.
Yeah, with very little time left. And then the crucial moment described in these sources. With just 2.2 seconds on the clock, Sabrina Ionescu was fouled by Lexi Hall.
Oh, no. So Ionescu to the line for the win.
Pretty much. She made both free throws. That put the Liberty up 90-88.
And the Fever couldn't answer.
Reports say Clark couldn't get a final shot off before the buzzer sounded.
Wow. What a finish. So final score in those accounts, Liberty 90, Fever 88.
Yep. And looking at the standouts from that specific 90-88 game narrative, Aliyah Boston was huge for the Fever, 27 points, 13 rebounds.
Dominant numbers.
For sure. Clark finished with a double-double, 18 points, 10 assists, and Kelsey Mitchell and Lexi Hall both chipped in 15 points each.
So good production from the Fever's key players, even in the loss described there.
Definitely. On the Liberty side, while we don't have the full box score distilled from every source, the reports emphasize multiple players hitting double figures early, Jones's clutch threes, and obviously Ionescu's game-winning free throws.
Okay. But now we have this other account, right? The one from the Fever's own YouTube channel.
Exactly. The video recap titled Game Recap, Indiana Fever Secure Upset Win over New York Liberty. This source describes a different outcome. A Fever victory framed as an upset.
Okay, wait, an upset win? That's completely different. What did that source say happened?
Well, this recap emphasized team chemistry and resilience as the keys to the Fever win it described. It quotes Coach Brondello again, but this time highlighting the Fever being much better, specifically mentioning the next level chemistry between Clark, Boston, and Alyssa Smith in that particular victory.
Yeah, interesting. So different emphasis, different outcome. What moments did this recap focus on?
It highlighted Clark scoring the first 5 points right away. Wow, what a start, it said. Aliyah Boston making it 7-0 early. It talked about the Fever pushing the ball in transition effectively in that game. It noted Clark hitting her second three-pointer early on.
Second, okay.
And it mentioned a big rebounding advantage for Indiana at one point, 14-2 on the boards in that contest. It also mentioned the Liberty climbing back from a 12-point deficit, but in the context of the Fever holding them off.
So similar elements, maybe like deficits and comebacks, but framed entirely differently towards a Fever win. Right. What about Clark's performance in this version?
This is a major difference. The upset win recap reports Caitlin Clark achieving a triple-double in that game.
A triple-double.
Yeah. 15 points, 10 assists, and 8 rebounds. And then it says she later got her 11th rebound and fed Kelsey Mitchell for a three that helped the Fever rally in the fourth quarter to take the lead and seal the win.
Okay, so 15, 11, and 10 eventually in that account. And it led to a win.
That's what this source describes. It talks about the excitement, the celebration, the team showering Clark afterwards, a totally different vibe and result.
And defensively. Did it mention anything specific about the defense in that win?
It did. It specifically highlighted holding the Liberty, who it called the number one team in the league, to just 16 points in the fourth quarter of that game.
Holding the Liberty to 16 in the fourth? That would be impressive.
Definitely a key factor in securing a win, if that's the game being described.
Okay, so we've got these two narratives, really. One detailing a heartbreaking 90-88 loss for the Fever, the other celebrating an upset victory fueled by chemistry and a Clark triple-double. What do we take away when we put it all together?
Well, I think regardless of which specific account you focus on or how you reconcile the differences, the consistent theme is that this matchup is incredibly competitive. Whether it's a 2-point game decided at the line or an upset win requiring a big fourth quarter rally and strong defense, these teams push each other.
Yeah, that seems undeniable. And the importance of the key players comes through in both versions, doesn't it?
Absolutely. The sources hammer home the centrality of Clark and Boston for the Fever. Boston's credentials, Rookie of the Year, All-Star, her efficiency, rebounding, it's all there in the details. And you see how they're trying to integrate with Mitchell, Hull, Smith, building that chemistry Coach Brondello mentioned.
And on the flip side, the Liberty strength is obvious too. Stewart, Jones, Ionescu. That's a foundation. But adding Cloud, who was scoring so well early, just shows their depth. Their offense, especially that three-point shooting, and their rebounding are clearly major strengths highlighted across the board.
So, takeaway number 1. Intense, close battles are likely the norm between these two, often decided late.
Right. And takeaway number 2 might just be the sheer amount of attention these games get, which the sources also touch on.
Oh, definitely. The Caitlin Clark effect is real, driving ticket sales, massive media coverage. It makes these matchups feel like huge events.
So looking ahead then, what does the schedule provided in our sources tell us about future Fever games?
Okay, so after this May 24th timeframe, the schedule lists, May 28th, they're at the Washington Mystics. May 30th, home against the Connecticut Sun.
Okay.
Then June gets into the Kushner's Cup games. June 3rd versus Washington again, but at home. June 7th, a big one at the Chicago Sky, that's on CBS. June 10th at Atlanta.
And crucially, more games against the Liberty.
Yes, the provided schedule clearly lists 3 more regular season meetings. June 14th, Liberty come to Indiana, that's on ABC. Then 2 games in New York, July 16th on CBS-SN and July 22nd on ESPN.
Okay, so June 14th, July 16th, July 22nd. That seems pretty clear cut from the schedule data.
It does, which brings us back to that interesting little nugget or discrepancy we found.
Right. One of the game reports we looked at explicitly called the May 24th game the fourth and final meeting of the season between them.
Yeah, which clearly doesn't match the schedule showing 3 more games lined up in June and July.
It's a good reminder, isn't it? Sometimes even straightforward details in different reports can conflict. You got to look at the whole picture.
Exactly. It highlights why doing these kinds of deep dives, looking at multiple sources, is so important. You get a richer, sometimes more complex, but ultimately more informed view.
So we've explored this matchup, seen descriptions of a nail-biting loss, an exciting upset win. We've highlighted the stars, the team strengths, the rivalry's intensity.
So the final thought to leave you with, considering how competitive these games clearly are and seeing how different sources can even report different outcomes or details, how does that shape the way you consume sports news, especially around really hyped events? And maybe more importantly, what do you think these early season clashes, with all their drama and conflicting narratives, really tell us about what we might see from the Fever and the Liberty as the rest of the season unfolds? Where do these evolving teams go from here?